In the Old Testament book of First Samuel, the 17th chapter, I shall read several verses in your hearing. First Samuel, the 17th chapter, I will read verses 28 through 30. Then I will skip down and read verses 32 through 37. And then finally, I will read verses 42 through 46. The Old Testament book of First Samuel, the 17th chapter, verses 28 through 30, verses 32 through 37, and verses 42 through 46. Verse 28 through 30. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I done now? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. Skipping down to verse 32. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing that he had defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. Verse 42, And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I dog that thou comest to me with a stick? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Amen. I want to talk for a few minutes from the subject, 3 victories in one day. Amen. 3 victories in one day. Amen. This 17th chapter, if you've been in the church for quite some years, you've heard the story or the record of David and Goliath. It's how a shepherd boy, a Hebrew shepherd boy, was able to conquer and kill a Philistine giant by the name of Goliath. When we look at this 17th chapter, we see that there was a fight going on. There was a conflict between Israel and the Philistines. scripture here lets us know that the Philistines were, first of all, a traditional enemy. When I say they were a traditional enemy, every time you looked around, Israel had to fight against the Philistines. Even though they would beat them on one hand, they'd come back again, and they would have to fight against this same enemy. The Philistines here are symbolic of the devil, because every time you conquer one situation, he keeps coming back with another. And so we find ourselves constantly battling against the enemy of our soul, which is the devil himself. And so we see that the Philistines were a traditional enemy. When you read in this 17th chapter, you will see that they were also a terrifying enemy. What I mean by that is, in the 17th chapter, the Philistines had a champion, one they considered to be their champion, in the person of a man named Goliath. There's much discussion and debate on really how tall he was. Some have calculated that he was somewhere from 9 feet tall to perhaps at least 12 feet tall. He was considered a giant. And this man, this Philistine named Goliath, would come down between the two mountains in a valley called Elah. And he would challenge the Israelites, saying, send a man down who will fight me. And if he's able to whip me, then we will be your servants. But if I whip him, you all will be our servants. And the record says for 40 consecutive days, this Philistine came down in the valley challenging Israel. And the reason why I kept doing it is because the Israelites were scared of him. They were intimidated. They were afraid of this Philistine named Goliath. It's almost like he was a bully in the valley. He was trying to intimidate them. He sought to frighten them to where they would either fight or surrender. And the record says that Israel was afraid of him. Are y'all praying with me? And you know, it's always the devil's tactic to try to make us afraid. The Bible says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And the way the devil try to get the upper hand is he'll try to scare us. He'll try to scare you to think that since you got cancer, you're about to die. He'll try to scare you and make you think that you can't do no better. He'll try to scare you and make you think you're not going to ever have anybody. He'll use fear tactics. And so here they were afraid of the enemy. They were terrified by this man. But not only do I see that he was a traditional enemy and a terrifying enemy, but when you read the rest of the chapter, you will see that he was a taken down enemy, because David was able to destroy it. The old saying is a true saying: the bigger they are, the harder they can fall. With God on your side, you can take down the giants in your life. As Christians, we're going to have giants to face. Giants can be symbolic of a sickness. It can be a problem. Whatever your situation is, that might be your giant in your life. But with God, you can conquer your giant. Your giant might be depression. It might be being stressed all the time. It might be some person who's getting on your last nerve. But with God, you can overcome your giant. And so we see here that God fixed it, that Israel's nuisance was destroyed. Now, the way it happened was, the way David got involved was David had some brothers who were in the military. If I may quickly paraphrase this, David had a total of 7 other brothers. He was the son of Jesse. Mr. Jesse had 8 boys. And David had 3 brothers, his 3 oldest brothers, who were in the army. They had signed up, they had joined the army, and they were fighting for King Saul. And the record said that Mr. Jesse told David, I want you to get some parched corn and some bread. Go down there on the battle line to see how my boys doing. Check on your brothers. Take them a home-cooked meal and let me know how they are doing. David got the food together. He left his sheep that he was keeping with somebody who could take care of them. And he got a driver for the buggy, and they went down to the battle line. Take the groceries down there to his brothers. He even took some cheeses down there for the commander of the army, because Mr. Jesse said he'll take the man that's in charge something to eat. Let him know that we're concerned about him too, and he'll let you go and see about your brothers. David got down there, went down there to the groceries, found with his groceries, and found those boys, his brothers, and he brought that food to them. And the record says, while he was there, Goliath showed up in the valley. And David heard him bragging and popping off and challenging Israel. And he noticed when Goliath showed up, the army began to run. David stood there and said, what y'all running for? Said, don't be afraid of this dude. He's defying the army of the living God. Our God is bigger than that. He ain't the giant. God is the giant. And God is on our side. Yes, David got involved because he went down in that valley. He went down there to see about his brothers at Mr. Jesse's command. Now, the unique thing about David is David wasn't just your ordinary baby brother. But when you read about who David was more than just the son of Jesse. The Bible tells us in 1 Samuel 16th chapter that when the prophet Samuel went down to Jesse's house to anoint the next king of Israel, because King Saul was so disobedient, God had fired him. And listen, even though he still had the crown on his head, God had fired him. And listen, let me pause and tell you, this is not a part of my notes, but let me tell you that you can still go to church and still be fired. You can still hold an office and yet God has fired you. Are y'all listening to me? I don't ever want God to fire me. I don't ever want God to put me on his inactive list. Are y'all listening to me? I don't ever want God to dismiss me. I don't want to just exist. I want to be used by God. God has fired Saul, and so God would raise up a replacement. And how many of you know that one way or another, some way, somehow, you will be replaced? Church folk need to know, don't act like where you are, you're going to always be there. Because one day somebody else going to take your place. Saul would be replaced. And so what happened was, Mr. Jesse went down there, and out of all the boys of Jesse, God passed up the oldest all the way down to the 7th boy, but when he got to the 8th boy, who was David, the oil flowed on his head. David was chosen and anointed. He was Israel's next coming king. But I noticed also in the 18th verse of the 16th chapter that when Saul needed somebody to play for him, to calm him because of that bad mood, that evil spirit that he had, somebody recommended David. Somebody, the Bible doesn't tell us their name, said that, look, we need to find somebody who can play and sing, who can help calm you down. And Saul said, well, who is it? And somebody stood up and said, well, Mr. Jesse got a boy. Mr. Jesse got a boy. He's cunning and playing. He's a good musician. He's a mighty, valiant man. He's a man of war. He's prudent in matters. He's good looking, and the Lord is with him. And the record says David was hired for the job. Well, brothers and sisters, David now is going down there to check on his brothers. And the record says while he was there that he heard Goliath's challenge. And my brothers and sisters, when David heard Goliath's challenge, he was disturbed. He began to question them, say, what will be done for the person who can take this man out? They told him, said, well, look here, David, if you whoever can take this man out, the king will make you rich, and you'll be tax-free, and you'll be able to have his daughter's hand in marriage. Yes, and of course, the record says David went on and fought him and won. But what I want to tell you briefly this morning is before David had to use his slingshot and bring down Goliath, there were some other battles he had to win. There were some other challenges that he had to overcome. And these three challenges came in the form of criticism. He was being criticized. And in order for him to fight and beat Goliath, he had to first control his spirit so that he could overcome criticism. Are y'all listening to me? Yes, he had to conquer criticism. He had to conquer somebody talking bad about him, talking down to him, in order for him to get the victory in the valley of Elah. And that's what I come to tell you all this morning, my brothers and sisters. This man teaches us that in order for you to get to some main battles, you got to conquer the small battles first. Yes, and criticism is one that some of us have trouble with. Many people have stopped serving because of criticism. A lot of folks have stopped coming to church because of criticism. Are y'all listening to me? Some husband gave up on his wife because of criticism. Some wife has gotten tired of her husband because of criticism. She stopped cooking. She said, I ain't cooking no more. I ain't cleaning up nothing. I ain't helping you no more because of criticism. He gone out looking for another woman because he's tired of the criticism. Are y'all praying with me? Yes, many members who used to be faithful have stopped because of criticism. This passage here teaches us today, if you're going to be able to take a licking and keep on ticking, if you're going to be able to press on in the name of the Lord, if you're going to be able to be in position for God to use you in a mighty way, you got to learn how to handle criticism. David here got 3 victories in one day. Yes, he had to deal with criticism. Well, first of all, let's see who was the first critic that he had to deal with in this 17th chapter. The verse said in verse 28 that Eliab, his older brother, heard him when he was talking to the men. And he got mad at David, said, what you come down here for? He said, and who have you left those sheep with in the wilderness? I know your pride and how naughty you are. You just come down here just to see a fight. He just went off on his baby brother. Now that was the first critic. Now what I want you to see about the first critic that David had in this chapter was this criticism came from a family member. And sometimes it's family members who can get to you. Are y'all listening to me? Sometimes it's family members, the very ones you expect to be supportive of you, will sometimes be the ones who are the most critical of you. Are y'all gonna pray with me? Look at him. It was his own brother, his oldest brother, who was critical of him. You know, when I first read this, I used to think, well, maybe his brother Eliab was concerned about him, saying, brother, you don't need to be getting involved in this and everything. But no, I come to find out that wasn't the case. His brother was still kind of hot. He was still kind of upset because when Samuel was at their house to anoint the next king of Israel, he was the first one who stepped up, and God didn't let the oil flow on him. And of all people, God let the oil flow on his baby brother. And he's sitting up there mad. He's envious. He's jealous because, he think he's something now because he been anointed. He think he's something now because the oil flowed on his head. I'm older than he is. I know more than he know. I'm stronger than he is. I'm the firstborn. If anybody ought to be king, it ought to be me. It ought not be David because he's just a kid. He don't know nothing. He's immature. But what he failed to understand, God knows who he wants. And God rejected him for a reason. And the way he's acting toward his youngest brother, we understand why God rejected him. Are y'all listening to me? He accuses David of being careless. He accuses him of being contrary. He accuses him of being curious. Listen to what he said. He said, who have you left those sheep with? He said, why are you down here? I know how naughty and how arrogant you are. You just come down here to see a battle. Eliab was wrong because, first of all, the only reason why David was there, Mr. Jesse told him, get some corn and some bread. Go down there and see about your brothers. Take them a home-cooked meal. It wasn't David's idea. Eliab needed to shut up and leave him alone because Mr. Jesse, Daddy told him to go down there and see about this. Are y'all listening to me? He's wrong. He came down there to do them good. He brought parched corn. He brought something to eat. They should have been saying, hey, Bubba, glad to see you. Praise the Lord. Boy, we proud of you. We praying for you. God used you in a mighty way. God got something special for you, but rather than commend him, they're critical. Are y'all listening to me? And sometimes if we don't watch it, some of us are just like Eliab. We're quick to give criticism instead of words of commendation. Rather than congratulate and commend and encourage somebody, we're quick to be critical. Yes, he was critical of his brother who had come to do him good. But that's the same way Jesus was treated. The Bible said he came unto his own, and his own received him not. Yes, even his own were critical of him. Even his own rejected him. So here he accuses him of being careless. He accuses him of being curious. He accuses him of being contrary. And I need to tell you here, even when you do good, somebody gonna criticize you. Even when you do what's right, somebody will be critical of you. David handled it just right because listen to what he said. He said, what have I done now? The question that he raises lets us know this is not the first time his oldest brother had been critical of him. He raised the question, what have I done now? Which means he's been getting on him before. And I believe he's been getting on him more since he was anointed. And sometimes when you start doing right, when you start living right, some folk will start acting funny with you. Are y'all praying with me? People who used to call y'all time don't call you much no more. Yeah, they don't run with you no more. They act funny when they're around you. When you start living right and doing what's right. David said, what have I done now? He said, I can't ask no questions. And see, another thing that messed up Eliab, reason why he had a problem was, he wasn't brave enough to go down there and fight. You ever seen folk like that? They too scared to do it. But they get mad at somebody else who step up to the plate to do it. And that's the way Eliab was. It made him look bad because he was not courageous enough to go down and fight against the enemy. So therefore, he decided to be critical. David teaches us how to handle it. He said, well, when you got critical brothers and critical sisters, just leave them alone. Just go on, start talking to somebody else because there ain't no need of arguing with your critics. David passed the test because if he had gotten caught up in an argument with Eliab, he would not have been prepared to face Goliath. Are y'all listening to me? Yes, don't get caught in an argument with somebody because they're critical of you. Yes, some folk, you just need to let them talk and just keep on going. Yes, that's the first critic, his brother Eliab. But then his second critic was King Saul. We read it in the text. Well, word got back to Saul that David said, I'll fight him. I'm not afraid of him. So Saul brought David in and he said, you are the one who want to fight him? Say, yes, your majesty. Say, son, first of all, you're too young. Secondly, you don't have enough experience. Compared to him, you can't beat that man. He said, you don't know enough. Say, look here, you're only a youth, but he's been a man of war from his youth. Son, forget it. You can't do it. You don't know enough. You don't have enough experience. It's not for you. But David conquered his second critic. You see, Saul made the mistake, first of all, of saying, you too young. Because what Saul didn't know, God can use young folk. God can use a person regardless of their age. Are y'all praying with me? Yes. That's the first thing. He had the wrong conclusion, but then secondly, he made the wrong comparison. He compared him with Goliath. Well, that's no comparison because Goliath was a man of the flesh. David was a spiritual man. Goliath had idol gods. David had the true and living God. Yeah, so you can't put them on the same level. You can't say that because of that man's size, he's greater than you. That's not so, because when you got God on your side, you are the majority. When God is with you, you can handle anything. Well, David listened to him, and David, I'm glad he didn't say, well, you're right. But no, David said, oh king, listen, let me tell you what you don't know. I keep my daddy's sheep. And one day a lion and a bear came and took one of my daddy's lambs. I went after them, and I delivered that sheep out of their hands. And when both the lion and the bear rose up against me, I grabbed them and I killed them. It said that just like I killed that lion and that bear, I will also conquer that uncircumcised Philistine. He said, the Lord that gave me deliverance over a lion and a bear will help me to get deliverance over this Philistine. David had a testimony. And that's how you deal with criticism. When people tell you what you can't do, what you'll never accomplish, rely on your faith fight. Rely on what God has already brought you through. Just say the same God who brought me through before is able to get me through again. God has given me victory in the past. He will give me victory in the present. You got to rely on what God has already done and have faith in what he's able to do right now. David said, yes, when others tell you you can't, you be determined knowing that with God you can. Yes, and so Saul said, all right, the Lord be with you. David got his second victory. But then his third victory came over the insults and criticism of Goliath. Notice when he went down in that valley, he didn't go with the king's weapons. The king tried to tell him, David, you take my sword and my shield. But David said, I can't use this. He said, I have to use what God gave me. And you know, brothers and sisters, you got to be careful who you try to be like. Because you got to understand the importance of being you and using what the Lord has given you to use. Am I right about it? David went down there in that valley to meet Goliath, and when he saw him, the record said he disdained him, which means he looked at him in a sneering kind of way. It's like when David showed up, he said, are you serious? Yes, he said, no. He said, and he saw David had a staff in his hand. And he said, am I a dog? Now, most folk who wouldn't have been like David would have said, you said it. But David handled it well. When he said, am I a dog that you come to me with a stick? He said, boy, I'll feed your flesh to the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. But David handled it by saying, you come to me with a sword and a spear and a shield. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. And on this day, I'm gonna, by the help of the Lord, I'm gonna feed your flesh to the fowls of the air. Am I right about it? And I come to tell you, my brothers and sisters, when folk are critical of you, telling you that you ain't nothing, telling you you'll never amount to anything, you stand on who God is. Am I right about it? And know because God is your maker and because God is your keeper, that you are somebody in the name of the Lord. Have I got a witness? David said, you think you can beat me with what's in your hand, but I've already got the victory because of who I have in my heart. He said, the Lord of hosts, it is by his name that you shall lose this battle. Have I got a witness? And anybody here know, yes, the name of the Lord is a mighty weapon. Have I got a witness here? With the name of the Lord, you can conquer anything. Am I right about it? The name of the Lord has gotten people off of their sick bed. The name of the Lord has helped us to raise our children. The name of the Lord has made our enemies our footstool. Have I got a witness? The name of the Lord has opened doors that we did not know existed. Have I got a witness here? The name of the Lord has answered many of our prayers. Ain't God all right? The name of the Lord has kept us in our right mind. Ain't God all right? The name of the Lord has saved us from a burning hell because there's power in his name. Have I got a witness? Anybody here know you made it this far because you called on his name? Have I got a witness? The Bible says, whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Ain't God all right? There's joy in his name. There's peace in his name. There's victory in his name. I heard him say, by the name of the Lord of hosts, you will be delivered into my hand. Ain't God all right? I'm glad today David got victory over criticism. He went on to tell him the reason why you're going to lose today because this battle is not your battle. This battle is not my battle, but the battle is the Lord. Ain't God all right? Anybody anybody here today know when the battle is the Lord? It's already a fixed fight. Ain't God all right? You're going to always be a winner when the battle is the Lord. When you trust in God, he'll see you through. Anybody know he will? When you trust in God, keep your faith in him, he will see you through. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know he will. Anybody here don't mind testifying? God will. Ah, he will. He'll get you through your valleys. He can move your mountains. He can calm your storm. Won't he do it? Ah, he will. Have I got a witness? Well, the Bible said David got his slingshot. He already had 5 little rocks. Put one in his slingshot. And the Bible said he ran toward the enemy. Anybody here know when God is on your side, you don't have to run from your problem. You can run up to your problem. Ain't God all right? He took that slingshot, twirled it around his head, threw that rock, hit Goliath between the eyes. He fell down on his face. Have I got a witness? And the Bible said while he was on the ground, David took his own sword, took Goliath's sword, with his own sword, cut off his head. Have I got a witness? It's amazing what you can do when God is with you. Remember, he tried to use Saul's sword, but he said, I can't use it. It's too heavy for me. But he got Goliath's sword, which was heavier than Saul's. And with his sword, God gave him strength to cut off his head. Ain't God all right? It's amazing what God can do for you when God get in it. Ain't God all right? He'll give you power when he get in it. He'll give you strength when he get in it. He'll give you joy when he get in it. He'll give you victory when he gets in it. And the Bible said when they saw what David had done, all Israel jumped up and went running after the Philistine. Ain't God all right? And I need to tell you in here today, when God bless you to conquer something, it can encourage somebody else. Ain't God all right? I thank God for my victories. Anybody in here got some victories? Got some experiences that God bless you to conquer. Ain't God all right? I stopped by to tell you, don't get so caught up in your problems that you can't count your victories. Ain't God all right? Let the victories that he's already given you give you faith to have victory over the problems you already have. Ain't God all right? Now, as I come to a close, look at what happened. All Israel got victory because of what David did. Have I got a witness? All Israel was scared. But when David showed up, went down in the valley, got the victory, come up out the valley, all Israel had the victory. Let me say it one more time. They were scared, intimidated by the enemy. But when David showed up, went down in the valley, got the victory, come up out the valley, all Israel had what they needed. Well, yes, there was a giant named sin that had us intimidated. Sin had us in a bad predicament. But one day, Jesus showed up in our valley. You know what he did? He went out on a hill called Calvary. He died for our sin. He was buried in a borrowed tomb. But early Sunday morning, he rose again. We have victory in Jesus Christ. Yeah. Ah, yeah. Yeah. Ah, yeah. I got victory in the name of Jesus. Leave here today saying in the name of the Lord, I'm facing my giants. In the name of the Lord, I'm gonna win. In the name of the Lord, I'm coming out. Won't he do it? Anybody know he will? Oh yeah, I know he will. Ah